How great would it be to get up close and personal with the beauty industry heroes we love and admire, and to ask them, how did you learn to do what you do? I'm Chris Baran, a hairstylist and educator for 40 plus years, and I'm inviting all our heroes to chat and share the secrets of their success. Well, welcome everybody to another episode of Headcases, and I have to tell you that today's guest, in my opinion, is probably one of the country's, he's the top and most well-rounded hairdressers that and hairstylists that I know. A lot of us do things where we specialize in one area. This guy is terrific, and he cuts, he styles, he does the color. He's a successful salon owner. And particularly of the Evolution Salon. That's the name of the salon. I'll give you a quick hint there. He has been a 4 times NAHA winner, including Hairstylist of the Year. And I know because I presented him with that award, and we're going to talk about that when we're doing in there and some of the feelings we had about that one. So it was really interesting. He's been a 2-time winner of Behind the Chair one-shot awards. He travels the world sharing his creativity and the genius that he has, because he brings the new ideas and trends to the shows, the shoots, and the sessions that he teaches. Not bad for alliteration there, huh? Shows, shoots, sessions. Like it? Okay, moving on. He has been with manufacturers, and he's been honored by working with them as their global creative director. And if you want to know why, it's because, in my mind, I think he's one of the most creative visionaries that there is, that are out there right now. You can see it in the magazine work. There's probably not a magazine out there that hasn't featured his work. And if that wasn't enough, Elle Magazine, they named him, catch this one, the beauty genius. So let's get into this week's head case, Mr. Matt Swinney. Well, Matt, first of all, welcome to Headcases. And as I always say, I think that to do what we do, you have to be a head case anyway. So that's why we've named it that. But welcome, and it's an absolute honor to have you on here.
It's an honor for you to have me as well.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. We were just chatting about this earlier, and I think that what I love about this, as I get to talk to the people that I admire so much, and I don't always get a chance to talk to them. And I think that the last time that we really were on stage together or met and chatted actually was about 8 years ago ish. Yeah. And I'll never forget that. It was NAHA. I think it was 17. Was that 17? And you had just won Hairstylist of the Year. Yeah. And Sam and I were on presenting that award. And it was your work. First of all, your work, as always, is just grand. It's superior. I love it. And it was so deserving. But I just so the audience can hear what I'm I remember what I said. I said to the audience, I said, just say thank you. And they went, what? And I said, just say thank you. And they all went, thank you. And I said, I want to say thank you because I want to say we're really excited that you guys all stayed. Because and this is, you and I chatted about this before, was what pisses me off about the way NAHA is now. Now, first of all, don't get me wrong. I love NAHA. I love what it stands for. I love what it does. But that's not what I hate about NAHA, but what I hate about the audience that comes to NAHA, the way it's set up right now, is everybody comes just to watch their person win, and then they leave. Yeah. And to me, that's just so disrespectful when you've got the most important award of the night. It's just like it'd be like last night was the Emmys, and you got the most elaborate award, the best one there, and if half of the audience left. I think it's just so disrespectful, and I don't think that. I think that if people are going to go to that, if you're listening, I'm chastising you right now in the nicest possible way, but damn well stay it to the end.
Yeah, it's artist supporting artists, not artists supporting some artists.
Exactly, or just because your manufacturer's there. I mean, and let's face it, I always look at whose name is on the top of my check when I get it, and I support that. But I think it is the artist supporting the artist, and it's got to be at the end. Just grant the person their due. You worked your bloody ass off on that collection. And then I know for myself, the sweat that you go through and the worry and wanting to win, but it's okay if you don't, and all the stuff that we say, but it's a really important deal.
Yeah. And it's not okay to lose. No,
Yeah.
I'm just
Well,
kidding. I'm just kidding. I'm just
no,
kidding.
but thank you, because I was talking with I remember Maggie Mulhern was interviewing all, I'm sure as with you, she interviewed all these artists, etc. And she asked me this question. She says, "Well, what do you say about when you go in? Do you go in? What are you going in?" I said, "Well, anybody that goes in and it says okay if you lose is a liar."
Yeah.
Because if you're not going in to win, you shouldn't be entering anyway. I mean, if you can go in, but give me what your thoughts are. Like when you prep in that, how do you feel?
I mean, when I'm going through something like that, any particular competition or whatever, my goal is to win. My goal is to be the best. That doesn't mean you can't be a gracious loser and respect who wins. But if I'm not going in with the mindset of like, well, if I don't win, it's okay. It's not okay.
Yeah.
Like my goal is to get out there and win, because I'm a competitive person. I come from an athletic background. So the competitive spirit is, inside you all the time.
Yeah. And I take my hat off to that, because I think that that's, if you're going to do something, just do it the best you could possibly do, and if you lose, it's not the end of your life. But it's just like in sports, you might lose a game, but that's not the end of the world. You just lost that game. Doesn't mean you're never going to compete again,
Right. Exactly.
So, yeah.
So that you learn too, right? I mean, ultimately, like a loss isn't a loss if you learn something. And so believe me, I entered NAHA many times and lost. The first time I entered was 2012 and I lost, and so you learn from those moments if you really are paying attention.
Yeah. I say it on here all the time about NAHA. I am the Susan Lucci of NAHA. I think I've entered almost every year since its inception in 1988 or 89, I think it was. And I've only won twice. So, but to me, it's, I made it in the finals and I keep working and I keep doing at it. I want to win every time, but you can't. You can't win every time.
Yeah.
So tell me, you said something interesting about the football background, and you can see from my physique that I have that thing where I go, when it comes to exercise, no pain, no pain, and
no pain, no pain.
So tell me your background, your hair story. Like, how did you get into hair?
Yeah, my parents were hairstylists, both of them actually, and they owned a salon for 45 years together. And so I grew up in a hair salon. Like I started working there when I was 12. I started working the front desk when I was 16. And hair wasn't necessarily what I thought I was going to do with my life. I definitely thought more along the lines I was going to go to college and do athletics and things of that nature. But I got injured. And so I couldn't do the sport. I couldn't play football anymore. And so it was kind of like a 6-month period of, wandering, trying to figure out what I was going to do. I didn't like school. School wasn't my thing. I never felt like I was very good at school. But what I realized is that I just wasn't good at the content of what school was providing. And so over a period of time, I was doing things that I shouldn't probably. Looked in the mirror one day and said, like, you can't live your life like this, because if you do, you're in a fast track to going nowhere. And my parents gave me a good life. Like I had we're middle class, but like a nice upbringing. They were around cool people. I got to go to hair shows with the NCAA when I was a kid, and I was, got to do some cool things. And so I was like, well, maybe I'll just go to hair school because I'm doing nothing.
Yeah.
And so I went to Aveda, signed up to go to school at Aveda, and I got there, and probably within the first 3 days, ultimately, I was like, this is great. I'm going to focus all my energy. I'm not just here to do something. I'm here because I want to be great at the craft that's in front of me. And so from day one, being there, day 3, I was 100% invested in honing the craft of doing hair. I found it to be so interesting. I found the fabric of hair in and of itself to be very interesting. I loved color. I loved cut. I didn't love styling, obviously, at first, because I don't think anyone does, because it's scary and it's hard. And especially having never really styled hair except for putting gel and slicking my hair back. Like I had no know-it-all of what to do, but ultimately that became my favorite thing. So,
Yeah.
I believe in training your weakness. So I spent a lot of time training on the weakest part of what I was, which was styling, and ended up becoming my favorite.
Love it. I'm going to try to take you back, because you said there was something specific. You said on the third day.
Yeah.
Do you remember? Because I have to tell you that we have similarities in here, because my mom was a hairdresser.
Yeah.
Excuse me. I didn't do well in school. If I got a C, that was champion for me.
Yeah, same.
But so we have a lot of similarities in there. But even when I went to school, I went to school because I wouldn't get fired. But there was a catalyst for me. What was that catalyst for you? I'm curious to know what that was on that third day when you went, I'm in.
Yeah. So my teacher actually showed us some work from Yosh Toya.
Oh yeah.
And I don't know. To me, it was like so effortlessly beautiful. It wasn't super wild. It wasn't, but it had this era of innocence to it that just for I don't know why, just took me in and like kind of like grabbed my interest.
Yeah.
And I was like, I would love to do something like that.
Yeah, that's really, and that, I'll bet you that part of that came from, and this is just a wild guess, just that athletic background, want to be good at something, need to exceed, etc. I find that's great. I love the fact that that was the standout moment for you, and I just want to, can you remember the teacher? I always like to give people shout outs. If there was one educator that was out there, do you remember that educator's name?
Yeah, it was Lyndon.
Love it. Yeah. Well, Lyndon, if you're out there, thank you for doing that. So you gave us Matt and the talent that he has now. So, I always think that it's so much about the educator, and to me is that I sometimes think that I'd like to find out what is your thoughts of when you get into seeing the educators that are out there now. When I say it, I mean that from when we started all the way along to now.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts on? I know, because I've heard some of the things you've talked about before, and I found it very interesting.
Yeah,
your view on education.
Yeah, I think education to me is interesting because it used to. I've been in this game for a long time. Not as long as you. I'm catching you though.
2 weeks.
I will catch you. And so I've seen a lot of different things throughout time. I've seen the times when it was shock and awe education, and that was the goal. It was just to shock people and do things that would probably not be translated ultimately behind the chair. It was just more inspiration. And then you slowly see this kind of evolution into these things where it's like, okay, now we need to kind of, because of the influencer introduction into education and things, it's like, how are we going to help people behind the chair? How are we going to help grow their business? How are we going to make them feel more confident and ultimately validate the stylists that come watch you to teach? Because that's what a lot of stylists are looking for through education, is validation for what they already do. And then now, though, it's an interesting time, I think, because I feel like a lot of people are boxing themselves in now, and then they're only able to teach one thing. And so being around a long time, I know, and world is cyclical and things evolve. And so if you can only teach one thing, if I could only bring to the table for you, Chris, a bob haircut, that is wonderful. That is great. And there's a place for it, but you become less relevant because, well, now it's long layers are stylish, or now a pixie stylish, or now, whatever the case may be. And so it's an interesting time where I feel like, the whole education landscape went from educator to influencer. And now it's kind of going back over here to this influencer educator type situation, because you have to be well-rounded in order to educate. And you have to educate on more than just hair now, in my opinion. Like it's my goal to help you understand how to get the best out of you every day, not just what to do. And I think that's really important. I don't know. What about you? What do you see in education happening right now?
Well, I'm with you on that one, and I really believe in this cycle, and I know that, and we always talked about that generally. And let me back that up. We always said years back that a trend and the cycle of a trend is 6 years, 2 years in, 2 years hot, 2 years out, and they overlap.
Yeah.
And we look at what's happening with some of the things that, and this is, out of Stephen Moody's mouth, not necessarily mine, but I agree with it 100%. I think our industry has shot itself in the foot because, all we're doing is long hair, root extensions, balayage things. And don't get me wrong, those are money makers. I'm not saying to throw them away. I'm saying that if you look at, I was just reading an article today that how the 90s are coming back in, with the Gallaghers from Oasis are back, and you're starting to see that really moppy, shaggy shape that the Oasis had. And people are terrified of, and I hope I'm not being repetitive for the listener that's out there, but I've been on this bandwagon that, our industry has to change if we want to earn money. We can earn money with the long hair, but we have to, as educators, we've got to make sure that we understand how to do the trends and things that are coming in before they hit. And I really believe that, and let's face it, you're a cutter, you're an amazing cutter. But I'm sure when you go around, people want long hair and layers to validate what they do, but it's because they don't know how to do the other side.
Yeah.
And I think I really predict that you're going to see a strong swing over the next few years where clients are going to be starting to look for it. And people are going to get caught with their pants down, proverbially, if they can't cut short hair. They're going to go to just somebody else. Yeah.
And I think it's ultimately too, like I said, we've got fixated into cutting these things. So it's like, I'm going to show you how to cut a wolf cut.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the technique that it takes to cut a wolf cut, because that technique actually can translate to cutting a pixie or cutting this.
Exactly.
So when I talk about, teaching and cutting, like, I am 100% technique based. I'm not here to teach you one haircut. I'm teaching you how to feel comfortable doing all the haircuts.
Well, I'm giving you a high five right there.
There you go.
To me, that's what it is. We have to turn people into understanding how to cut, not just how to memorize haircuts. Because let's face it, when I first started, and I always say, I got to clarify this, when I started with Sassoons, I'm not a Sassoon hair cutter. I didn't work for Sassoons. I was a Sassoon freak.
Yeah.
And they taught me everything about understanding hair and how to dissect. If I saw a picture or had an idea, I knew how to create it because I understood hair cutting. I didn't just memorize haircuts. Yeah. And I think that's kind of where I feel is that, and why I'm so happy to hear that that's there. And I think that that's what educators need to do now. Yeah. And I think that's where and let's face it, I know some influencers that are out there and they're freaking awesome educators.
Oh yeah.
I'm not putting all of them in that basket, but there's some unbelievable influencers out there who are great educators.
Yeah.
And now I think it's the time for the educators that we have to learn to go back and pick up what are they doing that you need to incorporate.
Without question. I think a lot of educators, I don't know if it was like fear of job or whatever it was, they just didn't like influencers. And like, a lot of my friends are influencers, and I think there's so much to learn from influencers. And so as an industry that talks about being inclusive, I think that those two should join together, and influencers shouldn't disrespect educators either, right? Like it should be a mutual beneficial relationship, because the educator can teach the influencer how to teach, and the influencer can teach the educator how to influence. And when you marry the two of those together, I think you get a really beneficial relationship, and you get the highest amount of return for investment as an attendee to an event. Yeah. When those two things are married.
Yeah, I'll never forget. I was talking to Sean Goddard, and I said to him, his work. I mean, he doesn't take the shock and awe value to the nth degree. He just sneaks it in, and then his work is beautiful and it's styled, and And he said outright, when I go to teach classes, I get better reception when I'm just teaching the things that are ordinary things that I can help them up their game with, that they already know how to do, rather than trying to teach them something that's so alien that scares the hell out of them.
Yeah, I watched this movie once. It was called In Search of Greatness. It was on Delta. And it's actually a sports movie. So they had people like Wayne Gretzky, Jerry Rice, people who were like the best of their arena, if you will. And Wayne Gretzky made a statement in there, and I think this is kind of true for our industry today. He talked about how children today, like, they train and train and train and train and train and train so much that when it comes time for the game, if that training doesn't succeed for them, they lose the ability to be creative, which ultimately takes away the possibility of greatness. So we're similar. We're watching a video. Like, we're training our brain over and over and over and over. And so if the hair doesn't, if you don't get that specific hair type in, or if you don't get that specific haircut, you don't have the capacity to be as creative as maybe stylists in the past. And so I do feel like there's a lack of creativity happening within the industry, and there's an uptick of repetitivity, if you will. You know?
Wow. I love that word.
Yeah.
What did you say that? Creativity as a...
Yeah, there's a loss of creativity, but an uptick of repetitivity.
Repetitivity. I love that.
And
I'm gonna use that, and I'm gonna give you credit for it all the time.
Steal it. But I think that it's real, and I think that it's, it's not to be negative. I'm not slamming anyone. I think there's a lot of talent in our industry, but when things don't go the way they're supposed to go, and you have to be creative, or if somebody comes in and says, do whatever you want, and you do the same thing you did on the last person, you might have to question the idea of, like, where does creativity sit, inside me? And what am I doing to harness that creativity?
Yeah. And don't you, this is just an opinion, and we know what opinions are like.
Yeah. Everyone's got them.
I always say I'm not the most creative, and I'm not the smartest, but I'm really freaking observant.
Yeah.
And I like to read, and I read this book that said that everybody is creative. You're born creative. It's just, it can be either something, a school, an event, a thing will affect you in a way that you don't think that you're creative anymore, but yet you actually are.
Yeah.
And I think it's like a muscle that it is, if you're not practicing creativity, it's going to atrophy, but it doesn't mean it's not there.
Yeah, 100%.
Because that's a brain thing. It's a brain conquering fear thing of just trying to do something that's different at the risk of the outcome.
Fear of failure.
Yeah.
I mean, ultimately, right? And there is no such thing as a creative failure, ultimately.
Right.
But in the eyes of the judgment of others, you might feel as though it's a creative failure. But there is no failure in creativity. I mean, it's like, it's like psychology in a way, right? You have to just allow yourself to be self-validated, not validated outside of self. And I think even how we are come into existence, how the human body comes into existence, is extremely creative. If you think about, like, you're born actually out of creativity.
Yeah, well, you're born out of you've got a pretty damn good shot, because I don't remember the exact number, but I think it's in the millions to get one of those sperms to an egg and to fertilize. And I think you already you won the race already.
Yeah.
What the hell are you waiting for?
Exactly. Yeah. My kids and I talk about this all the time, because I feel like we like, I'm Italian, so we like ancient Rome, and we talk about it all the time, and we talk about, like, art and things of that nature. And back in those days, like, people would go to the exact same park. You said something that sparked this idea. They'd go to the exact same park or the exact same field or whatever, and they would watch for a month on how simply the sun hit a tree differently. So it's that idea of observation that you're talking about. I think that observation is ultimately like the building block for creativity.
Yeah.
Because you're observing life happening. You're observing things all around you. And that is ultimately, in my opinion, on how you fuel creativity. And observing is not Instagram. Observing is not TikTok. Like, that's not observing. That's the opposite. You are filling a void so that you don't have to observe, whether it's something inside your life, inside yourself, or just, in general, you don't necessarily understand how to observe as well. Right. And I think I think observation is the core building block for creativity. And that is something society as a whole, not just hairstylists, but society as a whole lacks observation.
Yeah. We got to have more conversations because, I've got freaking notes. I'm just penning down in here. And there's a couple I just want to bring up just based on what you said. Firstly, I'm not Italian. I wish I was, but I'm half Ukrainian and a half German. So I say I'm a geranium.
Yeah, I love that.
But the point is that I love Italy. And I've been there numerous times. I absolutely love it. And you talked about when in Rome, when they would, I would get the just people that would just glance down, and it's completely through my thought pattern here. But they would talk about how people would say, for instance, when they came to education. Now we feel we have to teach everybody, but when you went to a master to learn what they learned, they never really taught you. They never said, here's how you paint an apple.
Yeah.
They would say, here's an apple, paint it.
Yeah.
And then they would say, well, okay, tell me if it doesn't look like an apple, what would have you done differently to make it look like an apple? Mm-hmm. So, and it was always about taking them to a point of discovery. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's where I think that we sometimes fail as educators is we're not just encourage them to make a mistake. Just listen, if you try this, I'm going to show you how to do this section, but don't get caught up in your own fear that you just don't go for it. Mm-hmm. And whether you're cutting it on your aunt or your uncle or a mannequin or whatever you're cutting it on, don't be so afraid of the mistake because therein is where all the discovery lies. So I just think that I love that metaphor that you talked about observation. And I think that observation just has to happen when you can just stare at something long enough. A good friend of mine, Benny Tognini, I'm not sure if you know Benny, but in my mind, you got to research him. I mean, he's probably just at the last third of his career, as am I. But one of the most creative people I've ever met in my life. Mm-hmm. And he said, when you're looking at a magazine and you find something that you don't find attractive right away, or if it's avant-garde and you don't understand it, he said, don't turn the page. Yeah. Just look at it. And what do you see in it? What do you derive from it? How do you think it was done? Because there's always something, even if you don't want to know how to do it, that here's the biggest thing I find, Matt, is people are only afraid of things that they can't do. Yeah. And if you know how to do it and you take the time to figure out how to do it, you're no longer afraid and you expand where you're at, you expand your income, you expand your horizons of what you can do, and ultimately your success. So,
yeah. And I would challenge that people probably know how to do less now than they used to do. So that just generates more fear amongst the stylists in the world and pushes them more into just one place. Yeah. Right. So it's just, I do one thing. I root melt everyone and that's it. Yeah. It's how we work. Even if they don't need it, this is what I do because this is where I'm comfortable. Versus, understanding how to do more. It doesn't mean that you have to be the best at all of the things, but under the understanding of how to do things, I think ultimately, is what's most important. Yeah. I remember you said something about creativity. I remember the first NAHA I ever won was for avant-garde. And I did this series where I studied storms and I wanted to create, this visual of these storms happening. And so then I used colors that kind of mimic the storm. So colors that would mimic earth, colors that would mimic water, and colors that would mimic fire. And it was all pieces. And I wrapped these, I used copper pipe and then wrapped these pieces.
You wrapped everything around and left loose pieces.
And it was around their whole body.
Yeah.
And then I researched like how wind creates certain storms. And then I had like umpteen million fans in those same patterns to create these movements.
Wow.
And it was something totally out there. Like, it was not, nobody, I had not seen anything. I got no inspiration from any other hairstylist for that particular photo shoot. And I remember, I'm not going to say the name, but I was going up against somebody who was very famous and had won avant-garde many, many times. And I was sitting next to them, and I was a young kid.
Yeah.
And the guy next to me, I was sitting next to, he goes, "Yeah, did you even do hair to create that look?" Like, and as a young person, entering these things, like, it was very, it was a moment that could have gone one of two ways.
Yeah.
I could have never tried anything different again, or I could have, given the old, and now I'm just going to do everything different. Now you push me, because I know I don't want to be like that. I would prefer to be this version of Matt as he grows up. And so, it was a very interesting, experience on, creativity and how people, like you said, you see something you don't understand, look at it.
Yeah.
Look at it. Don't just turn your head to it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that our industry, and I'm going to speak more of times past than now, because I think now we tend to be more brothers and sisters in arms, regardless of what manufacturer you came from or whatever. There used to be a whole separation. Well, that was that tribe. This is our tribe. You can't even sit together and have a conversation. And that really has changed, where we're all, to me, that's my part now, is I figure that I want to make sure that I can help other people get out there, and that all of the young people that are out there know who the icons, the legends, etc. are. But I think that it kind of tells me that that person, that shall remain nameless, was not really thinking clearly, because you could have dashed somebody's dreams right there.
Exactly.
And that's just a shame.
Yeah.
Because it's like that old thing is that if you just say to somebody, "That's awesome," your work, I'm just so proud of what you're doing, and you mean it.
Mm-hmm.
That helps to push that person. I was just doing a class this last weekend, and we were talking just about that. I was talking to a teacher at a school, and I just said, let the kid make a mistake, and then praise the hell out of them for making the mistake, instead of just beating them up.
Yeah.
Because then that says, "Oh, like, hey, it's okay to make a mistake," because we've spent so much time in our schools that all we did was got a teacher saying, "No, that's wrong," and then we just shut down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's very true. I agree with you. Mistakes are important.
Yeah. I want to take you back to, because I know we talked about your parents and going to school, et cetera, or getting right in there at 12 years old. I that's when I never went into the salon to work. I just went in there to get some money for chips and gravy, as we always had in Canada.
Yeah.
But I was always in the salon. But I want to take you back, and I want to get a little bit more. So, for the people that are out there that don't know what it's like when you have parents that are in there, what was that like for you? What was it like for you, and what intrigued you when being in there?
Well, my parents owned, most people don't know what this is, but my parents owned a shampoo set Friday kind of hair salon.
Mm-hmm.
So that means all the ladies came in on Friday, got their hair, styled for the week. And that was kind of, what they did. And so what I learned, number one, is I watched how amazing and effortlessly hair can be styled.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I mean, because it's really like they're doing some amazing things, whether it's your taste or not. That's outside of the point. The point is of what they do with hair and how they make that hair work and manipulate the fabric of hair is pretty spectacular, to say the least. And I guarantee shouldn't say nobody, very few can do that today. And so that part was very interesting. From my parents, even though they weren't, let's say it wasn't the cool hip salon, there was community. And that was, I learned a lot about community being in my parents' salon. And because everyone that came in had there was respect, there was love, there was laughter, there was kindness. The amount of care that went through that salon was second to no salon, I've ever seen. I like to consider my salon to be a community. There's a lot of love that goes around. but I still don't think that it fully compares to my parents' salon at that time. Just because maybe a different time in the world, whatever, but it was something that I learned really well. And then I also learned a lot about respect, because those old ladies that come in on Friday, they do not take crap.
No.
And so I learned how to respect the client, how to respect the process of what we do, and also understand the effect that we have on people's lives, every day, and what a difference just simply making somebody feel confident in how they look can do for their entire life, or their week, or however you want to describe it.
And I think you hit on a really good point there, Matt. And I'm not going to go. I always say, look at with all the. I mean, if you're watching and listening right now, or if you're never watching but you're listening, I've got more gray hair on my body now than most people do, and I'm of that gray hair ilk that you'd think I was going in to get my roller set. However, but there was a time in that when I want to talk about the community. What do you think if you were going to advise a kid now that was and right now, kid to me is anybody under 50. But if you were going to advise somebody that's getting into our business right now about when you talked about the respect, what would you tell them that if you're going to handle your clientele, what's the differences that you would do that maybe you do individually that somebody else isn't doing right now?
Oh man, people are not going to like me when I say this, but they're more.
I love controversy.
They're more important than you.
Yeah.
Like, you need to get that through your head, brother. Like, you are more replaceable than they are.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, like, there's a lot of people that do a lot of good hair in it, and you want to develop a relationship with those people so that you can continually build your book and continuously, you want that 3-month waiting list, and not just for 5 years. You want it for 25 years if you're going to stand behind the chair. And so I honestly think that that's one of the biggest things that's lacking, is just that idea that, the client is not as important and we are actually more important. And that's obviously social media, right? At the end of the day, it gives us this idea that, it makes people more egocentric. I mean, I'm not saying that I'm void of that either. I think we're all succumb to that at some point because we're human and we're born to make mistakes. But the reality is that the client is more important than you. And that doesn't mean there's not bad clients that you shouldn't fire. That's not what I'm saying. Not every client, but there are a lot of good ones out there. And I think you need to remember that. And I still try and treat my clients like that today. A lot of my clients don't even really fully understand what I do outside of the salon, because I'm talking to them about that. My clients don't know that I won 4 NAHAs and won 4 BTCs. They don't know. That is not why they're there. They are there because they just want a NAHA and they just want a BTC or whatever they did. And that's what I'm focusing on. And that's what I'm trying to, uplift them.
Yeah. I know it seems this is standard information that's out there right now, that when before social media, people found their hairdresser and hung on to them. They were like gold to them. But now that internet's out there, if you're doing balayage or a short hair or bob or whatever you're doing, there's 1,000 other people that are out there. They're doing it every bit as good as you are.
Mm-hmm.
And they're looking at what is the price? What's the salon experience like? And so if you don't make that experience so individual and so positive and so refreshing that they can't wait to come back, well, they'll risk it. They'll say, well, if Chris didn't do that, but I saw Matt's work is every bit as good, I'm going to give Matt a go. And if Matt gives me a better experience, even if it is less, more, or whatever, but if the positive experience that you're having is better than what I had in the past, I want to go. Just to the car dealer that we have, when we went in there, I went into bought my car at one place and went back. It was a lease. I took it back in to get another one. I didn't like what the way they were trading me. Yeah. So I went to somebody else and they give us the most amazing experience that was in there. And I said, well, to hell with that other guy. I'm going to buy my car here.
Yeah.
Same thing, man.
It's true. It's the client experience is so extremely important, and you are the client experience. Yes, there is a salon experience, but you, the stylist, are their experience.
Mm-hmm. I love it. I'm going to throw something else, and I hope this isn't too big a curve. This episode is sponsored by the Salon Associate Accelerator from trainersplaybook.com. Are you struggling with the time and cost of associate training? Do you feel like your salon is running you? We'll get your associates on the floor, all with 90% less time from you, so you can get back to building your business. Get them world-class design, finishing, color, and client care skills they'll use every day for the rest of their career, while you focus on realizing your vision. Go to trainersplaybook.com and get the Salon Associate Accelerator. And now, back to the show. Because I know that there's this industry thing that's out there right now that, and I'm basing this on what you said, you are the client experience. So what's your thoughts when you have a staff member and we know that person made that experience? There's this two kind of sided coin that you have out there. They're the salon clients or the stylist clients. And the owners are always going to say that they're the salon's clients. The owner, there's always this thing about, if I want to leave or I want to do whatever, how do I make sure that I get my clients? So what's your thoughts on that?
Well, now we're going to get more controversial, Chris. So I believe that they are the stylist clients. Like, don't get me wrong. If I send one of my up and coming stylists, if I send them one of my clients for a root retouch, ultimately that client's probably not going to leave me because they've been seeing me for 10 to 15 years. But when these young stylists work so hard to bring in clients, they are their clients. And so I've never hesitated to tell a client who called in if somebody left where they went. I've never hesitated to allow them to get the numbers of their clients, to call them and let them know.
Yeah.
I've always been very, very gracious, I guess you want to say, about that, because two things. Number one, if you don't want to work for me, please don't be there, because I'm good. Like, well, someone else does. And two, I'm not going to try and keep you from not making a living. Like, we've never had non-compete clauses. Like, if you want to go to the salon next door, go for it, you know?
Yeah.
I really believe in how we run our business, and we're kind people and we care about you. So I'm not, if you want to leave that, it's okay.
Yeah. And I think when you take that on, you use the word gracious. And that's exactly the word that was coming to my mind, is that if you're just gracious about it, and it's fine. I'll give you my story was when I wanted to start my business, and everybody leaves, and everybody, I always get, it's interesting when people get so great. And so what I'm looking for, they get hepped up about, you're my friend, why are you leaving? Number one, I would say they're not your friends. You can be friendly. Yeah. But I've always said in business, I don't want my people, I'll be friendly with them, but they're not necessarily my friends. Mm-hmm. And I want you right. And if I treat you well, you'll want to stay for a good period of time, but everybody's going to leave. But I remember when I left my salon, Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, Bill Ross was the owner. I still love that man to this day. And I've told this story a few times, so I'll keep it tight. But when I left, I was booked up 3 months in advance, and he just went, "Here's your book. I've told all your clients where you are." Okay. And to this day, I still respect the man for what he did, and I try to take on that same aspect as you do. I'll, if you want to go, fine. Then I'd sooner that you were happy somewhere else. So.
Yeah, and I think, like, if you go to open a business, your goal is to help people grow, and sometimes their growth doesn't include you.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, but it might not include you. It doesn't mean I don't want you to grow anymore.
Yeah.
That's true. Like, I still want you to succeed. There was a reason that I hired you in the first place. Yeah. So I've never understood that. I've never understood not, wanting them to succeed outside of your business.
What do you look for when you're hiring somebody and somebody comes to you and says, "Hey man, I want to work for you." Yeah. What do you look for?
Well, ultimately, it's personality. Like, at the end of the day, like, hair, we can teach you. Like, hair, we'll get there. Like, I'm not worried about how good you are at hair. It's like, we have a lot of, how would I say, individual personalities.
Yeah.
Can you handle that? Right? Like we're intense.
Yeah.
You know, and I mean, that's kind of just how it is. And so can you handle the intenseness? And then, you know, also if you need hand holding, like that's not going to work, because I firmly believe in adult learning, and that goes back to the apple.
Yeah.
I'm going to show you the apple.
Yeah.
Now paint the apple.
Yeah.
I'm not just
very
gonna,
much so.
I'm not just going to do it for you, because we'll get there, and we'll get through it, and we'll get you to understand it, but you have to go for it. So if you want to know, if I'm doing a haircut and you want to know something, I'm not going to say, hey, come here, I'm doing this haircut.
Right.
You got to walk over and say, what are you doing in that haircut? Because that is what's going to make you successful, not me forcing you like a parent to come learn this, or like, you know, a high school teacher or a grade school teacher. No, it's adult education. And that's really how you succeed in our industry.
How did you get into, like, tell me, okay, so you were at your mom and dad's salon, you transferred into your own. Okay, how did you get into the education side?
So there was a thing, I believe it was the year 2000 or 99. It was called America's Team Next. And there's a guy named Lyle McKeag. I don't know if you know that name. But yeah, so Lyle McKeag was kind of like he ran that whole deal. And so you would try out, and 4 people got chosen for that, and you would go teach at the ICE shows, the ICE shows. And so it was 4 shows, not product affiliated. And and so I tried out for that. I think it was like 2,000 people tried out. I was one of the 4 that got chosen. And from there on, I was super interested. My dad was president of the NCAA.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, for a long time. And so I used to travel and watch that side of the industry. And my dad put in a lot of work and did a lot of wonderful things and didn't get paid.
Yeah.
And so I said, I would like to do those things, but I would like to monetize what I'm doing versus just, volunteering what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And so I chose that side of it versus the, we'll say, political side of our industry.
Yeah. So now, so you've been educating. I mean, you've traveled globally. You've been their creative directors of companies before. And when it comes to your teaching, if and let's face it, I'm not. It's not rocket science to figure out when you've changed people's lives. You have fans. You've got people that, they'll see you and they'll know that you've obviously raised to a certain pinnacle. If with those fans, if they were to describe you as an educator, how would they describe you?
Oh, I mean, well, I don't know if we want to go there. No, I think it would that statement would evolve, right? Yeah. I think it's evolved over the years, without question. I think I used to be probably somebody who was trying to create a little bit of shock, create a little bit of awe. I think then ultimately, I think I evolved into somebody who, I think I had a moment in time throughout education where I was like talking at people. So I don't know if they would have said I was a great educator. I think they would have maybe thought it was cool or the position was cool, but I don't know if they would have thought I was a great educator for a while. And I think if you were to ask people now, I think that they would take home, that I'm somebody who genuinely cares about their success. And I think cares about their growth outside of the salon as well as inside the salon. I care about, I care about your retirement. I care about your personal health. I care, and I talk to all these things with purpose and with experience now. And so I think I'm 46. I feel like I'm finally becoming the educator that I always wanted to be, but didn't know how to. And that's ultimately because I needed life experience as well.
Yeah.
I needed to have an ego, to have an ego death. I needed to think I was this, to understand that I'm this. And so I get it. So I don't, as an educator, like I don't fault anybody for where they're at on their spectrum of being an educator, but I think now people would say that I'm authentic. I think that would be like probably the key word that you might get from a lot of people. I am authentically myself, and I don't apologize for that to anyone anymore, where maybe in the past I would have, because it wasn't an authentic representation of myself.
Yeah, that's, first of all, thank you for that. And you're not alone in that one.
Yeah.
I think that everybody that's out there was something that they were, who they thought they had to be, and then they kind of evolved into what they are. Because I think that everybody teaches like they were taught.
Yeah,
and I'm not saying anything bad against my teachers, but there was a hierarchy in the way that I was taught, and this was way back in the early 70s. And if you were the student, you were considered lower, and the educator was considered higher. And they wouldn't hang out with you. They wouldn't necessarily. They sometimes would talk down to you from that level, because that's just the way that it was always done. And that's the way I taught when I got away from there. I was at this group, and then I came away, and I taught that way, and people said that I was an asshole. Just from the way that I taught. And I think you have to learn some humility, and I think you have to learn about people's feelings, etc. I mean, I think I was tough enough to get through it, and it made me who I am. And I'm proud of the fact that I'm honored of the people that treated me that way, because it got me to where I needed to be.
Yeah, 100%.
But I don't think that's not how you can. I don't think that's true teaching.
No, but it does allow you to, it does allow you to handle when people are like that to you. And whether it be even a client or another educator or whatever, like, it does build a strength, I think, inside of you that might be lacking a little bit more today than it was in the past, because people are maybe a little bit kinder now from the get-go than maybe in the times when we were younger. And I think it does give you a little bit of strength that is, you can't really replace that. Yeah.
It's just, to me, is that I think the kind of coaching that I got then was like the coach would give you on the playing field. You would say, come on, if you're not going to work that way, then here, give me 10, give me 20, do wind sprints, do this, because they wanted to knock some of that stuff out of you. In order so that you would just listen and I don't say obey, but just, here's what I'm telling you to do, just do it.
Just do it.
And that I was eternally grateful for that, because it really made me disciplined. And I went from just haphazard fly and then it was discipline. Discipline. That part was really, really, really important to me.
But, and I would tell you this, like, a lot of what I talk about today from stage is discipline, because discipline in all facets of your life, not just cutting hair, but in literally all facets of your life, is what will kind of create confidence. And I think that there's a lot of lack of, discipline in the world just in general, but also within our industry, for hair in general, for hair in general. Like, we lack the idea of discipline, all probably because, we're not taught the same way. Teachers don't teach the same way. And people don't critique the same way either. I remember when I was playing football, it was my senior year of high school, I had a game, and I had 30 tackles, 2 interceptions, and a fumble recovery for a touchdown. By rule, that's almost 50% of the tackles that, from the plays that the team ran. 7 points and 2 interceptions. That is an all world game. And I got in the car. I was super excited to talk to my dad about this, right? Because my dad is my hero. He is my hero. He passed away, but he was my hero. To hear that. It's okay. He was a wonderful man. No stone left unturned between us. So we live, we die, and he's pretty awesome. So, but anyway, so I get done with this game. We get in the car and we're talking, and I'm like, man, can you believe that? Blah blah blah. And he goes, yeah, but you remember in the third quarter when that guy was scraping down the line and you missed the tackle? He goes, what happened there? After literally an all-world game, picks up the one tackle that I didn't make and reminds me, listen, son, don't think you're that good because you did miss that moment.
Yeah.
And my dad was not an athlete. My dad was like a book guy, very smart, 5'8", 150 pounds, little guy. But she sure did know how to critique my athletic prowess, you know?
Yeah.
And,
Well, you know, sometimes the stuff we need, you know, maybe sometimes when you just think you're flying high, you need to be knocked down a little peg, just a little peg.
well, it's true. And I live with that. I think about that all the time. And it literally,
Yeah.
no matter what I'm doing in my life, like when I talk about my kids with this, like you cannot be seduced by success. And so many people get seduced by their own success that ultimately is, I think, where we're at, you know, today with some of the things that are going on in our industry, and this whole idea that the client's not the most important thing, or I don't do great retouches, or, you know, I have 200,000 followers, or whatever the case may be. There's this seduction of a small amount of success. Life is very long.
Mm-hmm.
Life is very, very long. And so if you were to put hashtags for, let's say, what's the average, you know, life expectancy of a male is what, like 70 something, right? We'll say 78 just for that's 78.
I think 78 is what the
so
average is now.
78 hashtags on there, you know, and you have success for one of those hashtags.
Yeah.
It's not that much, you know? And so I say it to myself all the time. I'm like, that tackle you missed. And I could be, you know, really proud of how I mowed the yard. But I'd be like, hey, that tackle you missed, you know, just remind yourself.
Did you ever have, you know, a lot of people talk about imposter syndrome, you know, because let's face it, you've reached a pretty high pinnacle in your career. Do you ever go through imposter syndrome? Do you think about, does it even enter your brain? Do you suffer from it?
I mean, I think that could ultimately be, you know, core of what hindered me through the first 16 years or so, 17 years of my career, you know, is that imposter syndrome. It's like, I don't deserve this. You know,
are people going to find out?
People are going to find out I suck. But that's because my words didn't always match my actions. My actions match my words. So I am grounded in who I am as a human. Now, yes. And that is, I think, extremely important. And imposter syndrome is it's a real thing. I don't think it's fully understood either, Chris. I don't know about how you feel about it, but I don't think it's fully understood by people. And I don't know if it ever fully goes away. I'm sure it can flash again on me, but I know that every day, I'm very disciplined in my actions. So I know that my words are matching them, and that allows me to feel confident in what I have to say.
Yeah. Good on you. What was, you know, to me, I think it's really important that we not only, let's face it, we talk about the things that made us great, but sometimes the crap that goes on in our life to where is there any difficult times that you had to go through? And I say that not to pulling it out in any other way, just to know that people listening or watching will know that if Matt went through that they could get through it. What was there some difficult times that you had to go through in your career?
I mean, I gotta say, like, at the end of the day, you know, my difficulties probably have more been mental than actually like difficulties in my career. You know, I would say it's all mental. It's the mental difficulties of basically what we've been talking about, you know, this idea of like, I'm saying one thing, I'm doing another, saying one thing, I'm doing another. And even if I'm not recognizing it, that repetition ends up having an adverse effect on my body, you know, on myself. And I think it does for anybody. You know, there's time I was, you know, I wasn't healthy, right? I drank a lot, ate shitty food, didn't exercise. Like, that's a direct reflection of how I'm feeling about myself. And so, I think it's more mental struggles, I think, that I went through more so than anything else. Like, my career has been, I mean, it's been good, you know, I can't lie. Like, I can't, you know, it's been, you know, of course, maybe I left one job, went to another job. That job wasn't what I was told it was going to be. I could cry about it. I could say it sucked, but ultimately here I am now working with Redken. And so I'm a full picture guy, and so like this moment, bad, good, or indifferent, creates this moment. And so I don't know if anything's necessarily bad that way, career-wise. I think I've been blessed. I've had people who care about me. I've had people that take care of me. I've had people that showed me things. I've had people that have told me I suck. I don't know. The whole thing, the whole gamut to me is a positive.
Yeah. Well, yeah. See, and I think you hit the nail on the head right there, is that if you take it as a positive, if you take it as a growth, and I want to go back and I want to talk to a bit more about, because you just made another shift and you came on board with Redken. I want to talk about that. And but I remember that if you let a bad experience hit you, it can ruin you.
Yeah.
I remember that I was always big into competition before, and even before NAHA, was always local competitions, and I was always winning something. And I remember I was coaching some people, and look at me, and I got all puffy, and I was saying, look at that, and I went back, and I was just competing with the same things I did all the time. And the people that I coached won, and I didn't, and I wanted to go back home and get in my bed, put my thumb in my mouth and go a fetal position. But those are things that if they'll be positives if you just don't let them wear you down.
Yeah. 100%.
And I think that's a really important thing that you said there. I want to talk about what was that. I know I was so excited. I know Darren. Just for people may or may not know Darren Oram, but he's our new VP of Education with Redken. He just brought you on board. What was that like? What was it? How did that happen?
I mean, odd. It was a conversation.
Yeah.
From an introduction that just led to me being part of the Redken family. And like for me, Sam has always been a mentor of mine. Yeah. He's always been so kind to me. I've known the Redken educators for a very long time because we both taught at salon-centric events, and I would see them, and we were conversive all the time and got along really well. I think Redken is a heritage brand. It's an iconic brand in the United States and globally. And I think for me, it's kind of like, whoa, that's why I go back to like everything that's happened in my career has led me to this moment, right now, right here. And so that's why I cannot do anything but say thank you to my past for putting me into this place in the future, because it's a dream come true for me, and different from what I've ever done in a way. I mean, I haven't worked for a company as large, as Redken and L'Oreal. And so I find it to be just an extremely positive time in my life to learn new things and new parts of the industry. Just because all manufacturers aren't run the same, as you know. And so I get to learn a whole new segment of the industry. And to me, that's extremely exciting at 46 to be, refreshing, relearning, reinvigorating, recreating, rebranding. It's an honor, to be honest. Like that's how I would say it. It is an honor for me to have been trusted by Darren and the rest of the Redken family to be brought on board, and then to work next to just an amazing group of artists, good people who also have ideals that are very similar. They, from what my conversations is, they do care about stylists and about their potential and just living best, right? Outside of just behind the chair, your life. And that's something that's really important to me.
Yeah. And I know that I think it's brands are they're not stupid. Yeah. They're gonna know, here's somebody that can help our company, help the hairdresser. And that's the reason why I was always drawn to the companies that I was always drawn to, is simply I wanted to be affiliated with people that didn't see hairdressers as dumb. And I don't think other manufacturers do now.
Yeah.
But like back in the 60s, they did. And that was the leading charge that really helped me to make a pick on who I wanted to be a part of. And I'm just got to say, I'm super. When I heard the news that you were coming on board, I just went, yes,
Yeah,
that was awesome sauce to me. So I know we're going to get to hang out more,
that's gonna be
more and
cool.
more. And if it's anything like these conversations we're having right now, I'm going to say
Yeah.
tomorrow.
I'm
Got
gonna
to happen.
I'm gonna steal some of those hair tricks from you though.
Oh no! Listen, I always say that this is one thing that I've learned, and I can't remember. Like I say, I'm not smart enough to think of it as my own, but I take on stuff that were meaningful that people said to me, and I remember that somebody said to me once, if you take an idea and you hold on to it, it becomes all encompassing in your brain, and you can't think of another idea.
Mm-hmm.
So when somebody gives you an idea, you've got to give that idea away.
Yeah.
It's just like when you do a photo shoot or you do something, why not tell somebody else what they did? If you learn how to do something in an avant-garde piece, teach somebody else how to do it. I don't want to do that anymore.
Yeah.
I already did it. I don't want to do that again. And I think if people in our industry didn't have a hold back attitude, and I know back when in Canada, when we first started off, people wouldn't tell you the secrets they would tell you what they were doing. They wouldn't tell you any of the secrets. But that's where they got lumped into that, doing that bob over and over and over again. And then pretty soon they're irrelevant.
Yeah.
And Matt, I honestly want to say that I think you're probably one of the most gracious people that are out there right now, and that you are willing to give, and you willing to honor somebody else's success as well as your own. And I love the fact that when you said, I don't tell people that I won this, that, and the other thing, because quite frankly, I remember that time when I came in third in the blue rinse competition. I don't think that they cared about that, whether I did it or not. But I just want to say it's been an honor here. And we come to that kind of time where we're going to go rapid fire here.
Yeah, let's go for it. You're really kind. Thank you, by the way. That's very kind.
Oh, you're welcome. Listen, and anything that you ever need, I'm always there for you. And I'm a phone call away. When we're done here, I'll give you my numbers, etc. And anything I can do for you, I'm there for you. Okay, rapid fire. In your creative process, what turns you on?
Nature.
What stifles it?
Arguments.
Thing in life that you love the most?
Espresso.
Oh,
I love it.
What you dislike the most?
Fish.
Thing that you love most about our industry?
Kindness.
What you dislike most about our industry?
Ego.
Person that you admire the most?
My dad.
Your most prized possession?
My Aussie doodle.
Aw. A person you wish you could meet?
Vidal Sassoon.
Something people don't know about you?
I'm probably pretty boring to most people.
I doubt that. A month off, where would you go? What would you do?
I would take my wife to the Amalfi Coast.
Oh.
So beautiful.
Oh. Thing that terrifies you?
A shark.
Oh. I'll tell you some. We'll get together. I'll tell you stories about that. Favorite curse word?
Fuck.
Like,
duh. Is there another one?
Duh. If anybody that wasn't watching this, you got to go back and watch it, because it was just like emphatic. Well, what? There's another word. Your favorite comfort food?
Probably rigatoni and vodka sauce.
Something in the industry you haven't done but you want to?
I would like to teach in Asia.
Oh,
well, in specifically in Japan.
Nice. One do-over in life, what would you do?
I mean, it's kind of multiple. I wouldn't lie.
Ah, interesting. That's really interesting. Not even a little?
No.
Not even a little white lie?
No, because then you can't stand where your feet are.
Love it. Love it. Okay. Tomorrow you couldn't do hair, or you couldn't have anything to do with hair. What would you do?
I'd be a chef.
Oh, we're going to be good friends.
Yeah.
You can be my friend because I love cooking.
Let's go.
I've got one more for you here. But if people wanted to get a hold of you, and if they want to hire you to do something, or they want to have you to do a class on them or whatever, how can they get a hold of you?
You can always DM me,
Okay.
Matt.Swinney on Instagram. I answer them all.
And that's SWINNEY, right?
Yep. SWINNEY. And that'd probably be, or they can get my email address. But you can email me off my Instagram as well. So
beautiful.
And I'm pretty responsive.
Oh, very good. Okay, so if you had one wish for our industry, what would it be?
I think if I had one wish for our industry, ultimately, in the end, it would be that we realize, like I said earlier, like we don't get caught up in ourselves, you know? Mm-hmm. I think the ego, no ego, amigo. That would be my wish for our industry. I'm not saying that people have huge egos all over our industry. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying that I think sometimes we forget that, we're all in this together. And so the sooner we recognize that we're all in this together, the sooner, life will be harmonious. It's like Costa Rica, pura vida. I mean, that's what that means, It's like the sooner we realize we're in this together, the sooner that we'll have success. Yeah.
It's about coming from a place of abundance, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because if you come from abundance as opposed to scarcity, then there's enough for everybody.
Yeah, exactly.
So, Matt, I just want to say that you've been, so gracious with your time. And, I've always looked up and honored the work that you did. And it's just been so wonderful having a chance to talk. And now I feel that I know you even more than just a guy that I talked to on stage.
Yeah. That was an amazing moment. I feel
that we can,
I was honored.
we can have, and share each other as a friend. That's what's really important to me. Yeah, so I just want to say thank you. It was a pleasure having you on Headcases.
Yeah, Chris, thank you so much for having me. Thank you for everything you've done for our industry over the years. It's an honor for me to be asked by you to be on this show. So no need to thank me. I thank you, sir.
Well, it's mutual, and we'll be spending much more time together. I know that. Okay. Listen, and if you're listening right now on whatever format that you're watching on, if you can just jump on and give us a rating, make a comment. Particularly if you want more things like we're doing right now, we'd love to have those comments from you because that helps us to get more people that are following and listening. So, in the meantime, everybody that's out there, thank you one more time, Matt. Again, thank you so much. It was a pleasure.
Thank you so much.
Headcases is produced by Cut Action Media with Marjorie Phillips doing the planning parts, Lee Baran on the video bits, and Adrian Taverner mixing the audio jazz.